Thanks, Joe. Our next speaker in this session is Phillip Napier, the National Partner in charge of KPMG's Agribusiness Industry Sector Advisory Business. Phillip completed a Bachelor of Commerce at the University of New South Wales in 1975 and commenced his career with KPMG the following year. Since that time, he's worked with a wide range of KPMG clients, and on 1 July 2011, he was appointed to his current role as leader of KPMG's Agribusiness Advisory Service. His major client experience has included Australian public companies, Australian subsidiaries of foreign companies, particularly Japanese companies in the industrial and consumer market areas, and agribusiness sectors such as rural products, distribution, poultry industry, cattle breeding, animal health and crop care. Phillip's a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia, a member of the Australian Institute of Directors and a registered company auditor. He's written a range of different reports on the future potential for Asian economies as a critical feature in the future of agriculture, including the recent Expanding Horizons report, which highlighted the lack of cohesion in the Australian agricultural sector and the difficulties that would create in achieving long-term success. The challenge of getting a united industry position on major issues is one that has vexed many here today, so I'm sure Phillip's talk will be listened to with great interest. Please welcome Phillip.
Thanks very much, Mick, and good afternoon, everyone. KPMG released two thought leadership publications this year. The first one Mick referred to in his introduction, which was Expanding Horizons, and that really gave a very good summary of the issues, the opportunities, challenges for the Australian agriculture and food processing industry. I'm not going to talk about that in great detail, but the two are interlinked, as you'll see shortly. The second one, which really underpins the talk I'm going to give today, is opportunities for China and Australia in food security, or I think as it was included in the program, China's food insecurity. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because this has been an area that's been covered or referred to in different spots by other speakers, but I'll try and give you the benefit of my experience over 35 years, and in particular the observations and experience I've had through a long time of dealing with Japanese companies and how they've operated in Australia, and how I see some parallels and perhaps some differences with Chinese companies. So we all know the world's growing. We've talked about and seen how the middle class growth is going to happen in Asia and India. I guess just as a starter, I draw your attention to currently China has about 21% of the world's population. It has about 8.5% of the world's arable land, but only has about 6.5% of water. So for the last 10 years, as Joe has mentioned, China's been a net importer of food rather than an exporter, as its population, I guess, changed as a result of a couple of different factors. The speed of change in China has been quite dramatic over the last 10-15 years, as increasing urbanisation, infrastructure developments, the affluence, and when I say affluence in Chinese terms, there's significant affluence, but as was pointed out, in certain areas. And of course the implications for diet as a result of that. Just to remind you, on the left-hand side here, it shows the spike in the 60s when the population growth factor in China was something around about 14%. And then the one-child policy came in and the growth rate dropped right down, as you can see. The future on the right-hand side shows that, depending on the growth rate that China achieves by 2050, it could be a high of 1.5 billion, or it could be slightly lower than its current population of about 1.1, 1.2. Joe's referred to the differences in income streams, and of course, as the population moves from a rural background into an urbanised background, their incomes and their work changes from a rural occupation to industrial and other, and of course the remuneration increases, and that positions an increasing number of Chinese in a more affluent position. So that's a little bit about China. Let's now talk briefly about Australia and why there could be an opportunity for Australian agriculture. Australian agriculture is a producer of scale. We have a very strong positive brand internationally. In fact, it's my personal view that our international reputation is probably better known than it is locally. And that's perhaps something that the industry needs to think about. We have been a net exporter of food, and that's important for another reason. This country has never wanted for food. We've never seen what it's like for people to go hungry, or to have to find sources outside this country to import food to feed our people. So the Australian industry and the Australian population, particularly the consumers that our business, agribusiness, is selling into, has a different mindset. They've always got up and had food every day. And as one of the earlier speakers said, high quality, available 24/7. I guess the other thing that is changing, that you'll probably see at the end of this year when the statistics come out, the amount of processed imported food is on the increase, and it was something like $10 billion of imports in 2010, 11 billion in 2011, and my expectation is that the growth rate in this year, combined with the high Australian dollar, the focus of the two major supermarket chains on grabbing market share and customers, we'll see that probably go up to 14 billion. So that makes things challenging for the local food processing industry. We'd all be aware that we need investment in our industries. We've seen it in mining, we've seen it in a range of industrial areas. Agriculture is no different. And unfortunately, whilst we have over $1 trillion in investment funds available in the superannuation industry, Australian superannuation funds managers who are assessed and monitored on a quarterly basis on investment performance, etc., are unwilling to look at agri-investments as a potential recipient for some of the superannuation money, and I think that's a great shame. Certainly we need new products. We need to continue to innovate. Yesterday's sessions in the afternoon highlighted that. I'm very positive that the Australian agricultural sector, which has a proud history of innovation, will continue to do so. But there are lessons there in terms of how quickly we roll that out across industry and also how we fund it. And I think there are opportunities with China to look at joint funding models that could benefit not just Australia but also Chinese farmers. We do need to understand and appreciate, and Joe mentioned it, China is a very large market, but it's also, we shouldn't forget, despite it being a net importer of food, it's a very large agricultural producer in its own right. So cities are growing in China weekly, monthly. It's a vast development phase that their country is going through. Roads, cities, very modern, and obviously the urbanisation is making changes. People are moving from a rural environment into the city. As I said earlier, their jobs are changing. The availability of rural labour is reducing. They're having to, just like us, they're having to deal with climate changes, the impact of natural disasters, floods and other things on their production systems in agriculture. They've got to deal with productivity issues, but I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And there's also this issue, biofuels versus food, etc., and mining. Market access we've heard quite a bit about from the Minister and others today. That is improving. China has certain restrictions that we don't see here in this country, where they have strategic and pillar industries where they're quite protective. I do agree and think that there's significant benefit to be gained by joint venturing with Chinese partners for a number of reasons. In joint venturing, you will learn more about the Chinese requirements, and they will learn more about our own capabilities, our quality, our production systems and things like that. And I think there is the opportunity, as joint ventures are entered into, for a sharing of risk, a building of trust, and as I said, learning on both sides. So I think that's something that it doesn't have to be China just coming in, buying things, doing things on their own. Australian competitiveness is important because we're not the only country that China is indeed looking to invest in, and they've invested in quite a number of different countries around the world already. Free trade agreement we've talked about, but clearly it's important that that's finalised. Security of supply. China has been focused on this for more than 10 years because they, in their long-term planning approach, the way they run their economy, their 12-year plans, they'd identified that they were going to have food shortages, and they've done things about it. One thing that they've done, I think, differently to this country is they really do value education, and in particular the way they've focused in on producing capable, highly skilled agri-graduates is something that we can, I think, leverage, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I've referred to their infrastructure building. But, I mean, as Joe alluded, the size of the consumption market for food in China is significant. Consuming 25% of the world's soya beans currently, 20% of the world's corn, 16% of the world's wheat, you know, they are staggering numbers, and in the next 10 years those numbers will increase. How much more production can they squeeze out of their own agricultural systems? Well, they've got some challenges, not surprisingly. Degraded land, contaminated land, the encroachment of urbanisation, etc. is causing some problems. They've recognised this, and they've now developed requirements that if you are going to build on agricultural land, you have to identify other land that's suitable for agriculture. And as I said earlier, there's a reducing labour force. I put these next two slides up just to give you a bit of an idea at the level of careful planning that China goes into when they embark on these 12-year plans. 5-year plan, 12th 5-year plan, I'm sorry. And this is just agriculture, so high yield and ultra high yield new varieties and supporting farming technologies for produce such as cotton, rice and wheat. It's quite specific. It's got a research and development program underpinning it, and as you can see, fruit and vegetables, freshwater aquaculture, etc., biopesticides and fertilisers. There is a great list, and that's really just the start of it. So this is an area they treat very seriously, and I guess I believe, I'm optimistic that they will see value in our capabilities to help them solve some of their own problems while helping this country. They are consolidating. A lot of their farms were quite small. As the rural environment changes, people move to urbanised accommodation. They are aggregating, making farms smaller farms larger, and they're also looking at using mechanisation, because a lot of their systems were very manual. So, and they've got the ability with their industrial capability to provide tractors and other machineries. Not surprisingly, when they talk to other countries, they're not only looking at what we can do to help with their issues, they're also looking to sell us product. So don't be surprised when you see, China talking to us about buying Chinese tractors and other things, because that will be on the agenda. So education. Last year in China, I think they graduated something like 116,000 agriculture-related graduates. In Australia, it was about 700. Now, I know the population's larger, but even on a pro rata basis, it's a higher ratio of focus than we have here. I think this provides a great opportunity for us, and I was talking with a professor, an Australian fellow, with the Beijing Agricultural University, and he was saying, he has tried without great success in bringing some of his students, capable students, down here for work experience, to work in Australian agriculture, to give them a taste of what it's all about. And I think there is an opportunity for exchange programs, secondments, not only bringing some of these bright people down here, getting to know some of the things that they've been working on, researching, etc., but also sending some of our young people up to China to learn firsthand and experience some of the things that would be helpful for our industry to learn and go forward. China does need technology, they need innovation, they particularly need management expertise, and I think the example that was given with milk, the milk scare that they had, China looked around the world and said, right, which country is a leader in milk production? Came to New Zealand, and my understanding is, opened the doors for Frontiera to establish in China in a way that was unprecedented at the time. And not only is that something that's been a great success, but it's also given opportunities for New Zealand people to work, farmers to work in New Zealand, learn and apply some of the technology that they have from their industry in establishing a best practice dairy industry for China. Interestingly, accepting all of that, I was quite interested. One of the fellows on my table is from New Zealand today, and he was saying that Chinese tourists coming to Auckland go to supermarkets and clear out all the milk formula powder and take it home with them, and it's been quite a problem. So it just shows you, and I know we laugh about it, they really do take food safety very seriously, because they've had some major problems, and there's this area of distrust within their country, which is unfortunate, but it does present an opportunity for Australia, which does have a very high standard of food quality across all our industry segments. Doing business in China is different because you don't have an alternative view. You don't have the opportunity, as we do in this country, to put forward suggestions to a minister or a department. The plan is derived, and that's the way everyone goes. I think there's an opportunity with the change of leadership that's taking place in China as we speak for Australia to get on the front foot on the back of the white paper that the Prime Minister released 2 weeks ago. So I think there's always, when there's change, there's opportunity. And I'm sure the new leadership will make changes within the various departments and state-owned enterprises over time. So I think opportunity will be there for engagement with different people. It's very easy for them to predict what's going to happen in their economy because of this alignment of government policy through the various businesses and state-owned enterprises. Chinese do value long-term relationships. I can't talk from personal interest because I said my experience over a long period of time has been with Japanese, and I know that a lot of people were quite critical of dealing with Japanese business in Australia, but I've always found them to be excellent people to deal with, very straightforward once you get to know them, and once they know that you are a trusted advisor, you can build a very strong relationship. Each year I go to Japan, I visit the head offices of all the companies that I deal with here in Australia, and it doesn't seem like a lot having an hour meeting with some of these people, but the fact they see the same face year in, year out, I can give them an update on what's happening in this country, how it's likely to impact their business, what they're likely to see coming out of government and other areas in our economy, and the impact and opportunity that might present. Plus, the other thing is there are language issues, and unless you go and talk face to face, it's very hard to understand whether they really comprehend on a particular issue what has driven an outcome. So applying that approach with China, you do have to visit, you do have to have, in my case, our firm, we have a number of Japanese colleagues that are based in our practice throughout Australia, and I work with one of those when I'm in Japan. So we have a very strong relationship in terms of cultural exchange, communication, etc. Demonstration of products, technologies is also important to Chinese companies. This is just a picture of an agricultural display that Australia has in Shanxi. They also implemented a go-out policy, which was really, you need to go out to identify how you can solve this food security issue. This is going back 10 years. But while you're there, if we're going to invest in a country, we also want that country to look kindly on products that we would like to sell them. And that's not a surprise. They're also got to focus on quality, and Chinese quality of product has changed quite significantly for the better over the years. So just a few statistics, as of 2009, they had investments in over 177 countries. They became our biggest trading export partner, if you like, overshadowing Japan. A lot of that is on the back of mining, obviously, but agriculture is in there as well. They've had some recent investments in Australia, but when you look at the total foreign investment in this country, China's current situation is less than 1%. So there's a lot of hype. I'm not saying they're not interested, but I think we have to keep it in balance. And try, just to give you an example, of all the new cars that are sold in China this year, about 80% will be to people that have never driven before or held a licence. So we have these fears of what's going to happen when foreign countries make investments in Australia. But I think in this particular case, the size and the opportunity of the market in China will provide opportunities. There will be challenges, which I'll talk about in a second. I've talked about relationships, free trade, and leveraging the agri-talent. Let me talk briefly about the white paper. I think it's been a great initiative. I think we should give credit to the current government for getting on the front foot, for putting it out there. A lot of work went into it. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it's 300 odd pages long. It's got a lot of information, but it does feature a section on agriculture, and I think that's a great benefit that we should use to leverage. I think having two ministers here at this conference is a great endorsement of the importance of the industry. And as I said, I think timing is right now for the industry to come together and really think about what are the 2 or 3 big ticket items that they want our current government to focus on. There is that opportunity. Yes, it's a roadmap, it's a vision more than a plan. And I think there are challenges. We want to be able to identify not only export opportunities, but also ways that we can add value here in Australia, niche products, value add, and have a win-win through the engagement with China. It won't be an easy process, but it has put Asia very clearly on our agenda. Innovation's a very big part of it. We talked about productivity yesterday, and as I said, it's a great opportunity for agriculture to get on the front foot, not just with government, but also with our own market here in Australia, the Australian consumers, and we've talked about that today. And also it's a great opportunity to lift up the level of priority for a number of major infrastructure projects that Agri would like to see getting attention from federal government in Australia. So, look, thank you very much for the time. I'm happy to take questions. Before I leave, I just saw this, I think it was on Monday, and it's a release from a company in Singapore saying they've developed a vertical sky garden. Now, I know it's a bit hard to see, but they want to grow lettuce and other herbs and things, and instead of having a massive footprint and going out wide, they've gone up high and multiple levels. So it just shows, there are new solutions and new opportunities out there. We just need to get the best and brightest and think some of these through. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Welcome, Phillip.